I was going to try to get to sleep, but I was going to do one more video. Hopefully it's not too long. I've said that many times, but this was on my mind, so figured it's not very hard to click a couple buttons. In the previous video, the somewhere in there, Gospel of Philip, which upon a little bit of research looks like it's nowhere called that in there, but people gave it that name because somewhere in that book, Gospel of Philip, Philip is mentioned, and that's it, I guess. But nowhere is that name in there. They attributed it to Philip, I guess. 3rd century, somewhere around there on the dating. AD, 3rd century AD. But one thing I can say from the past and seeing some of Gnostics, they do exist. Specifically like Gnostics of Christ or something like that. They don't believe what the 4 gospel accounts say about him, about the Messiah. They believe, in short, what something like the Gospel of Judas says, or Thomas, definitely. I can't remember some of this Thomas stuff, but it also is on the same lines, same belief, is that, and most people probably know this already, the flesh is inherently evil and kind of just vessels, I guess, and you need to come to secret knowledge. The emphasis on secret, very much so, and self-knowledge, Gnostics knowledge, knowing, self-knowing specifically. It's no different than the New Age kind of stuff, that people should be familiar with, maybe at least a little bit, on what they teach and what they believe, which is just know yourself, follow your instincts, follow your heart, and find the God in you, and you are God. One and the same thing when they say find the God in you. You are God. You are the creator. Maybe not in a literal sense, but you are the creator. There is no worshiping the Father and you getting on your face. You being a worm, like we read in Job and other places, the Father forgiving you, not you forgiving like the Father or some nonsense. And we can know what the original Gnostic teaching was, because these books do exist, and there's a few of them. And they're all really the same. It's going to vary a little different, but they all really teach and emphasize the same thing: secret self-knowledge, and you are basically God, to sum it up. You are God, and they have a problem with the Messiah being the Son of God, the Son of the Father. And you can see it from their comments if you find them on YouTube, like I have before. And they are very against Christianity. They're against typical Christianity. They very much love their Gnostic belief and wanting to be God themselves, but they would never admit this. Nobody would, probably. So it's an extremely prideful teaching, as I've seen it. Prideful, Gnostic teaching in general, self-righteous. They might acknowledge things like sin, but you have to forgive yourself, New Age. It's the same thing. Forgive yourself because you are God and you transcend into a realm of spirit. And they take some truth and twist it and they go left instead of right, and it becomes something else. Because, being filled with the Spirit, being alive, it does teach that. I mean, right from the beginning, Scripture's always taught this, His commandments, keeping them are life. This is not a brand new teaching from the Messiah, just only, People don't know their scriptures. This always been true. There's a way, and if you go against that way, you will die. And it's like, the spiritual death and judgment, and the future judgment. Very specific. It has nothing to do with mystery, secret knowledge. Now, people who don't have truth, don't have the true given faith, all the truth is a mystery to them, and they're going to have false doctrine. Things like the mystery of the kingdom of heaven is mentioned because to the world it's a mystery because of things like Gnostics teaching. They claim things that they have that they really don't. They claim something they don't have. And if there's some Gnostics that find this video, I'm not one of those wishy-washy, float around like a feather, like Christian or something that's going to be easily swayed or moved because of some Gnostic going, you have no idea what it's talking about. You don't know what it's teaching. Yeah, I do. Probably better than you, Gnostics. Probably better than you. That's not to be prideful. It's going to end up being true a lot. I know exactly what they're doing and why they do it. I know how bad man wants to become something, become worthwhile, famous, popular, cemented in history, to be really useful to others, but some of these things might be good, but they, once again, twist it into something that's prideful and evil. They destroy all kinds of truth in scripture and doctrine. It's what anything that goes against the truth does. They've emphasized on resurrection by secret knowledge that has nothing to do with his, true faith. That's the Gospel of Judas in there. Says something like that. It just openly denies belief in the Messiah like that. It's the secret knowledge of the Messiah that he gave. So these things aren't like, oh, maybe they teach it. They're just blunt and outright with what they teach. Gnostics don't believe that believing in having the true given faith does anything. It's self-realization and self-knowledge and waking up your own God, of which you are God, but you need to get in tune, in line with this God. So it's not all lies. They take some truth and mix it with lies. That's what they do. And they don't know what they're doing. Of course they believe it's true, whoever believes it. Of course atheists believe there's no God and atheist is true, Of course they do. Everyone's convinced in their own mind. It's called deception. And I can testify to, I know the King of Truth there in the last video. You're probably aware that we're not quite on the same page on some things, and I'm not. It is what it is. It's just I try not to make it a huge breaking point unless it's really corrupt and bad. I mean, it just, for example, his thoughts, and maybe he's not 100% sure, but he at least questions it. Which, if that's what that's you. I'm saying what I believe, what who I am. That the Apostle Paul was a fraud, like an antichrist sort of thing. The problem with that is I can testify to what he said with my life. That's what happened. I didn't do anything. One day I just believed it was given. I literally did nothing. And it wasn't like a secret knowledge that I was thinking about that I retrieved and entered by through the secret knowledge, and it just hit me like a 10-ton brick. The spirit went from not seeing and being blind and not being able to question, see nothing, to knowing for sure. And this is why it's deceptive, because Gnostic is knowledge. Thing is, though, is it was given. I didn't do anything. I didn't even want to believe that day. I wasn't even asking for anything. It just happened. I believed, and then the first thing that I got swayed to, moved strongly to, was the scriptures, not like any other books, not Quran or whatever, Quran, whatever it's called, not any other thing. And interestingly enough, I wasn't moved strongly in the direction of joining a church building. So I found out pretty soon that I was in a pretty severe minority. The way the Spirit was leading me, pretty severe minority, because of some of the doctrines that Christianity teaches that I don't believe in, and people put that together as they do, Christians, many of them that I know, whatever, they think I'm deceived and gone down some different path, don't believe in their doctrines and trinity and stuff. But that's what happened. Then I had an interest for truth, specifically the Father's truth, and that's it. From that day forward, as imperfect as the path has been, because it's been up and down, but hopefully it's always gone in an up direction, even after the little downs. I didn't do anything. That's what I'm telling you. So the message is true. Paul's message is true. And my understanding is that it's simply not understood, and somebody that doesn't have the Spirit, doesn't have the truth to really guide them and check all things, seek truth, make sure you're not being deceived all the time. And yeah, Paul's writings will trip people up, and you'll believe standard Christian doctrine and become a member of their church building and believe that sin has sort of gone away. It's definitely not taken very seriously anymore. You reread his letters and you'll find out how serious Paul took sin. You'll find out how serious Paul took sin if you just keep that in mind while you read. Does he take sin seriously? You'll come out saying, yeah, very much so. Very much so. So they lied. That's all. 1,700 years of not understanding Paul's letters. That's all. and he was obviously very zealous for spreading the gospel. And people don't know apparently what he was doing, specifically getting someone the message so that they can believe and have that moment of belief, you know. Um, but they take it as he's talking about the rest of somebody's life when it comes to belief is by faith, apart from works of the law. Yeah, it's always been like that. It's always been like that. If you don't have any faith and you're trying to be a good person, then you're gonna end up a sinner the rest of your life with no change. What else could I add? Gnostics, New Age. They're they're heretical to me, and I see some of the things that are in there. It's just pretty obvious and clear to me what's going on. And what's sad is some of the truth that his people are led to believe. They're actually called Gnostics now, when Christianity's trinity is actually Gnostic itself, and closer to Gnostic than, I shouldn't even say closer, as if his truth is close. It has nothing to do with Gnostic, Father's truth. It has everything. Their message is the opposite of denying yourself. How much clearer could I make it? Gnostics, New Age, they don't deny themselves. They lift themselves up and worship themselves. They find themselves and find that they're God. That's their goal anyways. That's what they teach. So was it through secret knowledge that the Messiah was who he was? No, he denied himself. He denied himself and did the Father's will. Worshipped the true creator. Had nothing to do with self-worship. Of myself, I can do nothing. It's about as anti-Gnostic as it gets, his truth and who Messiah is. It's in a 180 direction from Gnostic. Now, if you learn about these things and have a good understanding, a good foundation of what Gnostic teaching is, you'll find out how the Trinity and where the Trinity Messiah came from, how Gnostic it actually is. That's why I say it's the original Gnostic. The Gnostics all agreed and believed that the flesh was just vile, evil, okay? They had to transcend in some kind of, through the secret knowledge, through finding themselves into spirit realm and resurrection, and they really go into some spiritualization that's beyond what's written, beyond the truth. And they I think most of them, they believe something like immortal souls. Basically, you die and your whatever, your immortal soul goes somewhere, and now you're finally set free from the flesh, which is so evil. The thing is that the flesh in Scripture is representing that carnal nature. That's true. So there's some truth to it, but they go in a different direction once again. And the literal flesh itself is not evil. That's a spiritual teaching. But Messiah was flesh and blood on the earth, 100%, just like us. And he didn't sin. Kind of goes against anything a Gnostic says, right? It's not that, look, here's God's creation. He created the hand, Well, it's evil, it's wicked, right? That's not what it teaches. That everything about you is the body itself, his design is wicked and evil. It's that nature inherent in us that wants to do evil all the time, that's true. That nature in us, which is represented as the flesh, carnal, flesh is carnal, carnality, sensual, uh, lustful, wants to fill up what the flesh wants to fill up. Yeah, but they're no different. They're no different than New Age philosophy. It's really one and the same, as far as I can see. Pretty much the same. You'll find out these people don't worship the Father. They can't do that any kind of proper way. Not really. If you're a New Age or believe in Gnostics of Christ or something, you can't do that. You can't deny yourself as a Gnostic. It's all about to raising self, resurrecting yourself, um, elevating, going up higher into the spiritual realm. That's where it separates completely from his truth is that you don't deny yourself even remotely. I guess you acknowledge to your own self you are your own forgiver, creator, and if you want to be happy doing what's good and right, you just simply worship self and say, that's what I want to do, and then you do. That's all. That's what they teach, which is similar to other religions out there that exist. They all have similarity. But I don't believe in those Gnostic gospels at all. Zero. Um, Once I find something heretical in there, something that's completely backwards from the truth, then that whole entire book can't be trusted anymore for anything. It might quote some verses like most of them do because they were written later. The, they were likely written in the 3rd century, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, late 2nd, 3rd, 4th, quoting from scriptures that already existed. And it's a problem like anything else. That doctrine's gonna leaven and grow, and you're gonna end up not just believing other things, but you become something else. It's going towards that self-worship. And there does seem to be more and more people out there that are calling themselves Christ and God and Messiah. There seems to be a little bit of a trend going on, which is crazy and insane that's always happened, I guess, in those last 2,000 years. You're always going to have people like that. But I think personally it's happening more, and it's going to happen even more than now. Uh, and it's almost scary how predictable, accurate, you know, people, prophecy says of people, what they're going to do. They're going to be lovers of self. And those are the wolves. If you love yourself, lovers of self. And lovers of self cannot have the spirit of the Father in them or the love of the Father in them, meaning that whatever love they portray and say and teach and act like when they need to act is not genuine. It's not genuine. They have another agenda going on, which is all about the anti-Messiah, all about the Antichrist. It's all boiling up to that point, it seems like. It just has to go that way. It's getting people to trust and worship themselves, which they will quickly, openly, and willingly acknowledge the Antichrist, the Messiah, when he comes, this false Messiah, because it's of that same spirit. They're one in the spirit on the wrong side of one, you know. That's where religion's going. It's all trying to get back together as one and deny the truth. The churches are just getting even worse than they already were, especially the mega churches. They're receiving some other spirit, some foul spirits going on in there. Sin isn't looked at in any kind of light, like through the truth, through his word. It's all loose. It's extremely loose. And I don't like it. I don't like what I'm seeing, but I don't suspect I'm just going to continue to not like what I'm seeing in the future. I don't know how much of a reformation or I don't know how much of a reformation there's going to be. Up to a certain point, I guess, and no further. I suppose it still will grow a little more than what it is now. People come into truth, you know. But that I didn't finish connecting that the people that believe in the Trinity, you come across someone that doesn't, you know, they're gonna just label you as a Gnostic, as a heretic, as a apostate from their church, which is actually true. That's what we're supposed to do, is apostate from the harlot, come out of her, my people. From their point of view, we look like apostate heretics, Gnostics, right? When they don't even have a foundation of what Gnostic is. They've never looked into it. They've never studied it. They never read a little bit, at least, from some of these Gnostic books to know that that's what it means, what the true Gnostic teaching is. Some of them have an idea and they know some things, but they don't make the connection ever. They don't make the connection that Gnostics didn't believe that Messiah came in the flesh. What can't they understand? The main theme, the main belief of Gnostic is the flesh itself is literally pure evil. Therefore, there can't be any Messiah that's a man, that's flesh and blood. So therefore, he didn't come in the flesh. He came from divinity. Sound like the Trinity to you? People that are ignorant of this, they just don't want to learn it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to see that they're actually believing in some false Messiah. That their whole church foundation is based on paganism, Gnostic. And they're deceiving because they mix it with the scriptures. They believe in the Bible, right? They're not Gnostic. They tell you that. And they don't have the exact same viewpoints, you know, specific teachings of Gnostics. That's true. But it's all mixed up and confused. That's what Babylon is. It's confusion. When you say your Messiah came from divinity and was God in the flesh somehow, literally God, divine, the all Trinity, divinity of Jesus, divinity of the Messiah. He was divine. What they mean by that is there was no Messiah that was truly a flesh and blood man, just like us. He never existed. They're not going to tell you that openly because devils can't just openly tell you truth like that. They have to twist it with lies to suck you in. That's the truth, though. He already existed, co-eternal, co-everything, spirit with the Father, divine, perfect, pre-existed forever and ever for all eternity with him. And that came down and was incarnated into the flesh. So therefore, the Messiah that they believe in is not a flesh and blood man. Not really. Um, they have to say that he was, because it's just so apparent. So, to not to say he was some kind of spirit floating around would be just maddening blind. Um, but the point is that he came from above, literally. That's their teaching. That he floated down, became a blob of seed, and became the Messiah, and was born from a woman, and wasn't in the flesh. He didn't come in the flesh, not according to the flesh, That's Antichrist. 1 John 4, that's Antichrist, of which there's many. Believe the word, believe his word, inspired word. There were many back then. The Gnostics were coming in, the wolves were coming in, all kinds of people were coming in to tear at the sheep. And this is just one group of them, of who they were. They were denying he came in the flesh. That's the original Gnostics. That's the original Gnostics. You're not going to find this behind a pulpit or popular on YouTube, because the truth isn't popular. There's going to be a few out there that understand this and believe it, but they're not popular. It focuses all on the God, the divinity within oneself. And that's who the Gnostics were. I don't even know that the Gnostics, because the Gnostics, the Gnostic Gospels books, I think most of them acknowledge that, yeah, there was a man, and he was a man that gave secret knowledge, but they couldn't actually believe that he's the son of the Father, and they didn't understand, I guess, what that even meant. Or that there could be a man that's called Messiah, a flesh and blood man. That's heresy to them. So therefore, I believe that's where the Trinity, Messiah, got inspired by those people. It was inspired by them. And that's how they came up with, he came from, he already existed and was perfect and spiritual and a perfected body, and he was co-eternal, co-existent, co-everything. And he came and became that, just went inside a body. That's how they kind of teach it. Just gave himself a body, a flesh and blood body. But the Messiah himself came into this body, but who he is himself, is not a man. He came, you see what I'm saying? He came from divinity and just took on like a physical body. That's the incarnation. That's the Messiah that came from divinity, not according to the flesh, not in the flesh, of which there's many who deny this, that he came in the flesh. Many. So who are the many? I'll ask yet again. Where are the many? That scripture says there was many back then, and John called that Antichrist. So how about now? Surely there's many. There's still many. Yeah, there's many. I'm telling you who they are. Once you know who they are, you could see that there's many. Yes, there is. Any other understanding or teaching than what I just said, you now come up with none. There's none. Nobody denies he came in the flesh, right? Everyone knows he's a man. He was a man who walked the earth, flesh and blood man. So where are the many? Where are they? Hopefully people can understand that. I don't know if people understand what I'm saying, um, because it's not taught. It's not a popular teaching, the truth. Just like Moses was born, who is a type of Messiah, so also Messiah was born the same way Moses was. It's not going to be radically different than the type. Moses was a prophet and, had the Spirit upon him. He was a true prophet. So was Messiah, but he's greater because the Father made him greater. Then they accuse you of saying he's just a man. He's just a prophet because they're Gnostic on this belief of who he is. They don't believe he's a man. How obvious is that? They're telling you, you believe he's just a man. Yeah, you don't believe the scriptures that he's a man, that he said he's the son of man over and over again, in case you were to get confused on who he is. I'm telling you, they don't. Trinitarians don't believe he was a man. They don't believe he came in the flesh. They only tell you that. They only say they do just to line up with what it says. Oh, scripture says that, so I better agree with it. Yeah, that's how the devil works. They'll tell you they believe he was a man that came in the flesh, but they're liars. They don't believe that. And they're all confused on what it actually means. They're all confused and deceived on what that even means. Some of the teachers out there, they're not confused. They just straight up know they're lying and teach people lies. This isn't very hard to grasp. Every single Trinitarian will say, oh, you don't believe in the divinity, meaning he's God, came from above, literally, like he already existed as that's the Messiah, and he took on a body. However that happened, whatever they say happened. And that's who the Messiah is. You take away that Messiah that came down into the body, all you're left with is a dead corpse, a body. They don't believe in the Messiah of Scripture. They don't. And the proof, once again, I could just say it over and over again. When they say, oh, you believe he's just a man, is proof that they don't believe he came in the flesh. Proof. 100%. Can't be refuted. Of course, they can lie and twist, create all kinds of contradictions, but that they can't be refuted. They don't believe he was a man. He is a man, was a man, is a man. But you know what I mean. They find it absurd, his truth. Of course they would. Everyone finds the Father's truth absurd. It's not even possible for them to believe and want to keep his commandments and all these things. It's the carnal mind is not subjected to the Father. It's not subjected to the Father's laws. It's not subjected to anything. It's at war. It's at enmity. It hates the true Creator naturally, and they hate his truth. You think the whole world could believe this truth on who he is? Not in the devil's world. Not in the God of this age, God of this world. It's not possible. I want to say it in different words, maybe make it even more simple or profound, but I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, if someone can't see that, they can't see it. That's all. They just can't see it. They don't believe it because there's foul spirits attached to it. It's antichrist. It's very the devil can't be one with him and his truth. So Trinitarians are very much against what I would teach and believe, you know. They'd be very against it because it's anti. They're against the truth. You know, all that genealogy, like I've said before, totally worthless and pointless. And suddenly it's cut off at Joseph and Mary. And he's not a man, you know, he came from, there's no relation, there's no connection. The line is always carried by a man in scripture, which means it still is, even if people say a mother carries a line. Well, they're liars. The man carries the line because he carries something. Should be pretty obvious to people, you know. So Messiah can't actually be the seed of David. They just are wolves. They come in and pretend and say that he's the seed of David and descendant of David. You can't say that and not believe in what a descendant or an offspring is that scripture teaches, that everyone else knows of in this whole world. What an offspring is, you know, you came from your father's line. There's a connection. Somebody's great grandpa couldn't be called that unless you came from his line. It's not hard to understand. That's who Messiah is. He came from a literal line. That's how he was born, which means he didn't literally exist before he was born, just like us. He existed in the in the mind of the Father, in his plan and purpose, just like we existed also, just like everyone existed. We exist in that sense, in that he foreknew, we're foreknown, you know, before the foundation of the world. He foreknew his chosen before they were born. In that sense, they existed, and that's it. That's it. So since Messiah is the perfect example in all things, he also was born just like us, tried just like us, tested, went through the fire, hated, preached truth. No one believed him. Crazy doctrine, thought he had demons. You know, they thought the believers, which represent the believers today, they think we have demons for believing this truth and believing truth in general that we're taught by the Father and not some false shepherd, you know, some false heretic in the church buildings in most of these places. That is so evident that they don't have truth, you know. They all believe in a bunch of lies. How come the Father hasn't revealed to them that the whole entire creation is a lie that the devil's created? How come he hasn't revealed that to all those people in the church buildings? What's going on there? Every pastor should know, every minister should know and be teaching that the globe earth is a lie. How come they're not? Because they're part of the world. They're one and the same. They're part of the government. They're part of the world. They can't teach or speak against it. They can only go so far, and that's all they're allowed to do. That's it. That's all they're allowed to do. They're not allowed to take benefit from the world and then also teach against it and preach against it. That's like a Hollywood actor making millions of dollars a year and then going around trashing Hollywood and exposing all the true lies of what it is, you know. You think they can actually do that? Of course they can't. But there's so many layers to deception though, so they let some of them actors give you a little bit, sprinkle a little bit, like they'll give you music where it sounds like they're anti-Illuminati and anti-this. We're exposing truth. We're anti-government. No, they're not. They're just to suck in the group that somehow came to this knowledge, that maybe we're looking for some kind of truth and got bumped into these lies and stuff, right? It's to capture them too. They don't care if they give away a little bit of truth, as long as you can keep them divided and overall just captivate them to the evil still, you know? And you'd be surprised how many YouTubers, how many people are there out in this world that believe some of these musicians are prophets and stuff. It's a joke. Keep preaching through the music, you know? It's nonsense. They're not biting the hand that feeds. It's not happening. If someone was actually doing that as a real threat, they wouldn't exist. They would shut them down or kill them. Then you got people that act like and pretend that they've been shut down and they live off of other people's money, getting who knows how much money because they pretend. They suck in a bunch of people, certain number of Christians and a certain group that exist. They suck those people in. Telling you all of this, the purpose of all these divisions and to suck these people in is to gather it to one thing. That's it. It's going to be a little different here and there, and these groups might expose the other ones in there, but they're all going to that one thing, really. The Antichrist spirit. That's what it is. So there's pretenders in Hollywood that act like they're truthers in Hollywood. No such thing. No such thing. If that hurts somebody's feelings, well, good. It should, I guess. But they don't exist. They don't exist. No millionaire, billionaire from Hollywood is giving you all truth. Not happening. They're all deceivers. The ones that claim that they give you truth, they're deceivers. They're liars. They have a, few 100,000 subscribers. It's likely that it's all lies or mixing truth and lies. Because he doesn't give you 100% lies, just 100% every word that's coming out is a lie. That wouldn't deceive anyone. You would come off as a worse than Hitler, sadistic, evil. He masquerades as an angel of light. That's how he captures people. Why can't people figure this out? How come they don't know that? If I was in Hollywood and I started giving the best that I could on truth, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't exist. Whether they take me out or I wouldn't be there. They wouldn't allow it. These people own them. They have contracts over there too, They own them. Most of these people don't even make their music. And these their own ideas, they just pretend. Some of them might write a little bit of their own, whatever, but it's all filtered through the system. They're not going to be allowed to pump out anything that's uh, against their guidelines. You can't trash the hand that feeds you. People that think that they actually allow you to do that, it's just crazy. It's nonsense. It's not happening. So then that's what it is. That's what Trinitarians are. They're Gnostic in that teaching of who the Messiah is. That's what it was inspired by. I'm pretty convinced Gnostics came up with that, and by the 3rd century, later in the 3rd century, almost the 4th century is when like the Trinitarian doctrine got cemented as official doctrine. You would have already had some Gnostic books and a bunch of Gnostics everywhere having a major influence on, and then the paganism all around too, and mixing it all together, and you just get it. And that's what you come up with. Constantine, Catholic, and other people inspired church, all mixed up. False doctrines, doctrines of demons. They think the falling away is something that happens like at the last few days or couple years of the age, but it happened a long time ago and just continues to happen. That's all. And there's, the way I understand it is that there's going to be a certain amount of people that maybe come to the truth at the end, and then they fall away. And that's the great falling away. You have to have a bunch of believers for them to be a lot of falling away. If you look at the pattern of that age back then, from 30 AD to 70 AD, that's really the pattern of what's going to happen. Now, the gospel started going out, and for, a few years, it seemed like they turned the world upside down, like we read in Acts or somewhere. A lot of people were coming to belief. That's a pretty big phrase. It seemed that they were turning the world upside down. And that's what the true gospel would do. It would expose, kill, and eliminate the devil's world and system, all of it. And then what happened? What happened? Destruction, a falling away, and then a destruction. So it has to go along according to that pattern. Doesn't mean every little detail, the amount of years is all the same, but it's that pattern. So there's a awakening of believers, and then a falling away and getting into nasty stuff, and then destruction. That's the pattern. That's the pattern, unfortunately. That's what we've been given to understand and see, that it's going to be bad at the end. That's what happened then. It was sort of the way I see it, the way my understanding is, that period of time, 30 to 40, represents the period of time from the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD, to the end. It's just a long, big period, but it's going to go along that pattern in a broader, bigger sense of hundreds of years and stuff, instead of just a couple decades, few decades. The question is, where exactly are we on that time frame? When did the awakening, if you will, happen? Or did it happen yet? Or is it happening now? And when is this falling away going to happen? I believe we'll be given more as time goes on to see more of these things. But I don't see a lot of time before destruction, though. I don't see too much time. I don't know how much time, but it just doesn't look good. It looks pretty ugly, this world. It's pretty deceptive. This corona thing's not as minor as people maybe think. It's a pretty nasty step, pretty nasty direction towards where it's going. I think the word FEMA is going to start becoming popular. FEMA camps. It's going to be more of that going on. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be out of the system, I guess, eliminated, unable to find work, and there's going to be camps for all these people, and there's going to just be more and more of these people and groups. Society's going to start becoming run down into chaos and anarchy. That's what I see. I mean, I don't see too much else. It's already happening, but people, some people seem to be aware of it, but overall, the world in general is just everything's going on as usual. Another day, nothing big, nothing major has happened. How did I manage to make another super long video on this, man? Well, now I think I'm tired enough to go to sleep. Gnostics, New Age, really the same thing, same spirit. Stay away from those books, man. The fruit of it, it's so obvious. If you've been given discernment on these things, you know, the fruit of people who believe in specific Gnostic, like Christianity, or not Christianity, but Gnostic, uh, Gnostic of Christ, like where they believe there was a man, I guess, but he had secret knowledge and he gave it, and these disciples of theirs wrote it down. And this is nothing new under the sun. This would have existed before, existed then, it exists after. It's nothing new. This is that antichrist spirit that he warned about that was coming into the world and now already is, and there's many. Back then there was many. And they're false. Their intentions are no good, and they're stuck up in pride with their doctrine of being God. They are God in their own minds. It's almost scary accurate, you know. Right in the beginning in Genesis, that the serpent said, "Don't forget who said that. Don't ever forget who said ye shall be as gods." You know, who wouldn't want to have knowledge? It's the knowledge of good and evil that she wanted, right? And lusted after that knowledge, Gnostic, and self-knowing, coming to knowledge falsely, not through receiving it from the Father and asking for it. Otherwise, you don't have it, but you coming up with it yourself and becoming knowledge. Knowledge of good and evil, in this case, knowledge of Gnosticism. The snake said that, the serpent said that, which is evil. The serpent represents the evil, the devil, the enemy. It is evil from the beginning. From the beginning, it was evil. The Father created the serpent evil, therefore the devil was created evil. Because that's what the serpent represents, is symbolic of the devil. If the symbol, which was a real beast, a real creature, if the symbol was evil from the beginning, then what it represents was evil from the beginning. This is not hard to understand. That's exactly what the Messiah said, and we have like 3 verses on this, or 4. He's a liar and murderer from the beginning, a murderer from the beginning, and some other verses from the beginning. Just I think that's it. You know, so that's where that comes from, that teaching that you're God. You can be God by self-knowledge, self-relevant revelation, you know, your own. Comes from within yourself. That's not who Messiah was. That's not who he is. That's from the serpent. He relied 100% on the Father to do the works and the miracles. The healing didn't come from himself and his own knowledge. It came from the Father above. I'm from above, you're from beneath. They don't have the spiritual understanding of that, though. We're supposed to be from above, spiritually, you know, not from beneath, lowly, earthly, carnal. That's what that means. It has nothing to do with falling from the sky and he was co-eternal and stuff. I'm from above. That's a spiritual teaching. And it's true. They don't teach the truth about it. They don't have the true meaning on it. That these things are what the Spirit has confirmed in my spirit, that it's true. That's what it means. That's the teaching, not what they teach. Not some kind of literal, like came from literal heaven or something, as if coming from 1,000 feet above has some kind of spiritual benefit versus being 1,000 foot lower or something. It's ridiculous. But more than anything, they believe he is God, and that's why he didn't sin. God put God to death. They nailed God on the cross. That word should be stake or a pole, upright pole, as even the Strong's has the definition of stake and an upright pole. Not, they gave it the word cross because when you think cross, it sounds like the T, of which I don't even believe he died on a T-shaped cross. That's an Egyptian symbol. The Egyptian symbol's the same, but it has a little circle on the top. That's all, no difference. The cross goes everything. You have to do a study on that. Just the cross in general, not just the T shape, but any form of a cross, any kind of crossing of lines. This goes back, way back. It's pagan. Moses had a rod, not a T-shaped cross that he was carrying around. He had a rod, and it's that rod that they looked on to be healed, which that rod was symbolic, a type of Messiah. It's an upright pole. Now, as for the serpent on the rod, if that's the type of looking to, believing in the Messiah, and you're healed. They were healed physically, right? Well, this healing is spiritual. Everything's spiritual. That's so we can understand the spiritual meaning. Healed within. And the commandments, the law, it's all spiritual. That's the high thing. That's the important thing, is keeping those commandments in the spirit, spiritual. That should be placed above anything else, not equal or below to the physical things. Like I said, I don't put down any physical thing or commandment, but the spiritual understanding of it is the true things concerning the heart and mind. And I haven't thought on it very much or even sought after why, but I'll have to now, because now that I've thought of it, what does the serpent represent on that rod? Why were they looking at a serpent on the rod and they were healed? Or a snake, That's kind of interesting. Obviously, that's symbolic and means it represents something. But how could it represent the Messiah himself? The Messiah is the serpent. He said, be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. If there's a connection there, maybe. Be wise as serpents. But that can't be it only, that the Messiah was as wise as a serpent. That's what the serpent on Moses' rod represents. There's got to be something I'm missing. That's usually how it is with truth. You miss something, you don't see it all, full picture, and it's got to be given. So you just ask for the meaning. You don't rely on yourself as a god, and start making stuff up. It's got to be revealed. There is a meaning, and I don't know if I got part of it or not by saying wise. Somehow that's not striking as the full picture. Messiah was wise. That's what the snake represents, and they looked onto the wise and were healed. Why a serpent? I've never really thought about it. The first impression is, the first carnal impression is, well, it represents the Messiah. So Messiah was a snake, you know, obviously that's not right. And that's how scripture is a lot of times. It trips people up for those that don't care about truth. On a surface level, it might. The first thing they think of carnally, they think that's what it means, and it means something vastly different. Like I'm from above, the first carnal thought that everybody would think of is like I'm literally from above. He was literally from heaven. It's not the meaning. That was revealed to me a long time ago. It's not the meaning. It's not literal like that. So I think I'll end it here and just confirming to people in case they wondered that I don't believe in Gnostic gospels or Gnostic anything. That's all. Peace.